Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lioness Lifestyle Live. I'm Ellie from Nourishment Redacted, and I'm so glad to see you tonight.
And I'm Adrian from Adrian K. Gledhill. If you have any questions for our guests, please put QQQ or question in front of yours so we can be sure to ask our guest.
So you might be noticing that someone is missing, one of our lionesses. Cristie is so sad that she couldn't come tonight, but we hope that you enjoy regardless and keep watching the show for her so we can know that you love the show. One of the ways that we love to interact with you guys is to hunt for a roar of the week, which is a comment you've left for us on a previous episode. And so we have one from Cami, last day of normal. Look over. That was so wonderful. I'm going to share this episode. And whenever you do share or you like the video or you're commenting, that way the show gets out and we can continue to spread the message of meat-based eating. So I am so excited to welcome our guest for tonight. Get ready. Hi, welcome, Julie, to the show.
Hi, Ellie. Hi, Adrian. I'm so excited to be here.
That's great. We're so happy that you have decided to join us in the den today. Could you please share about yourself, your healing journey, and why you choose to eat a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, well, the short version is I went on a diet to lose weight and kind of accidentally fixed my brain. So that's the short version. Any questions?
Oh, love it.
Well, everybody have a great night. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye. I'll see you another time.
Yeah. So what was going on with your brain? Why did it need fixing?
Okay. So I'm one of those women that was late diagnosed with ADHD. So I was diagnosed at age 35. I'm 43 right now. And so my whole life, I didn't know what was going on. For me, the main symptom was procrastination, which I didn't know was a symptom of ADHD, or I probably would have guessed that I had it. So that was my major, let's say, mental health symptom, was that no matter what I wanted to do, I just couldn't sit down and do it. And this started, as far as I could remember, around age 8 was my earliest memory. When we had homework, I would never do it during study hall. I would get home, I'd watch some TV, I'd wait for dinner, then I'd have dinner, then I'd watch some more TV, and then when I was getting tired, then I would start my homework. So starting at an early age, I was always tired, kind of stressed out, and couldn't understand what was going on with me. And, of course, my parents were not so happy about this either. It was really hard to get me out of bed when I was a kid, and on and on and on. Now, it's one thing when you're a kid, and really all you have to do is play, do your homework, and, not get in a lot of trouble. But as I got older, things really started to fall apart. Once you're out on your own and you're cooking and you're supposedly cleaning, which I was not, and doing all those things, just living a grown-up life, that's when things really fell apart. And I was just exhausted, not sleeping, and I was just a total mess. And so that's the mental health side. Physically, I was one of those up and down all over the place with my weight. I was hardcore vegan for 13 years, followed by Flexitarian for another, I don't know how long. And the first week of being a vegan, I felt amazing. And so I was like, oh, that's my data. So I continued to go, vegan, super vegan for forever, not realizing that my brain was suffering and that my body was suffering. And so fast forward to, a few years back, I had that photo, that one photo where somebody takes it of you and you just go, oh, okay, no, that's it. I can't, no. That was my photo that I was like, I really have to do something. So I kind of got back into intermittent fasting. And then I don't even know how I heard about keto. I think it was Reddit or YouTube. I don't even know. And so I started looking into it and I was like, well, I've literally tried everything else. Let's just try it. Started and I put it into an app and I didn't know which version to use. So I accidentally put in the super strict version that you're supposed to use, like for epilepsy, mental health, like the serious keto, not knowing which one to do. I was like, let's do the hard one. Nah, I like a challenge. So I put that in and was on a super strict ketogenic diet, super high fat, moderate protein, very low carb. my weight started dropping rapidly. And then about a month into it is when things really, really changed mentally for me. I was an English teacher at the time, an online English teacher. So Monday through Thursday, I had class, no problem. I could get to class. It was easy-ish, easy as teaching can be. But Sunday was my least favorite day. Do you guys know why Sunday was my least favorite day?
I would assume all the grading. You probably couldn't keep up with all the work coming in, right?
You're close, yeah. So I purposely structured it so that I wouldn't have any grading. I would do all my grading live, but I had to do lesson planning on Sunday. So that was just absolute hell for me because, Monday through Thursday, I had to get up at a certain amount of time. I had to be there or somebody would be mad at me. But Sunday, I had this long whole day to do all my planning, plus feed myself, plus whatever, right? And so every single Sunday, I would wake up early and I would procrastinate for sometimes 10, 11, 12 hours until the sun started to go down. And I started to get really stressed out. And then I would start. At the time, I knew I had ADHD by then. I'd been diagnosed. I still didn't understand why exactly it worked. Now I understand part of it has to do with when we bump up our stress levels. It kind of kicks in, cortisol, glucose, dopamine, all this stuff. So that's part of it. So this one Sunday, after I'd been on a low carb, ketogenic diet for about a month, I woke up 7 a.m., made a cup of coffee, sat down, opened my computer, did all my work in 3 hours, shut down my laptop, and I went, oh. And I swear that was the first time in my entire life that anything remotely similar to that had happened, where I just sat down, did what I wanted to do in a reasonable amount of time, and that was it, and that was all. No drama, no stress, no procrastination, no husband saying, aren't we going to do something? It's Sunday. No, I'm working while I'm running around the house. And so that's when I was like, what is going on? Is it the diet? Meanwhile, I had started sleeping well for the first time in my life. I just thought you were supposed to be tired. I thought people were just tired and that was normal. And so I had started sleeping well too. And I was like, okay, I'm sleeping. And my procrastination that I've been struggling with since I was a baby, basically like a child, is gone. And that's when I started researching what's going on. And I realized that, there's something to this. I wasn't the only one this was happening to. And so, of course, I got obsessed with the whole theme, as you do. And here we are.
What an incredible story. Seriously, I kind of got a little bit of a chill because I know a lot of people who suffer with this mental disease, and it's so difficult to live in a world where you're supposed to be following deadlines and you're supposed to be in this hustle culture, but then you can't sleep well and you're not eating well and you can't focus. And so I think it's wonderful that you've found the reason and the solution for your procrastination. I would love to know, because you said how long were you vegan, and what is flexitarian? I've never heard of that before.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so vegan, I think it was about 13 years. I started in middle school because I was doing a paper on animal rights and happened to read the chapter on factory farming. Now, going back in time, I love animals. I will always love them. Going back in time, if I had read something that said, this is dangerous for you, this is really going to mess up your health, I really don't think I would have done it. But I kept reading all these things that said, this is fine. You just need some B12, it'll be fine. This is healthy for you. This is the way to do it. Plus, my first week as a vegan, I felt great. Why? I don't know. Maybe because I was cutting out some of the crap. I've also heard from some people that when you start veganism, you're actually getting almost like a freak out response in your body, because your body's going, hello, are you going to feed me? And it almost gives you this boost of energy. So you can misinterpret it as, I feel great. And you might continue misinterpreting that for years as your, mental health and other things are slowly deteriorating. So I was vegan. I think, I started when I was 12 and I ended when I was 24. So that's 12, 13 years. And then flexitarian is when you're mostly vegetarian, but sometimes you have meat. And so I did that for a long time, until I was about 40, 41. So a long, long time. During the pandemic, I got diagnosed with vitamin B12 and vitamin D deficiencies by a doctor who happened to be vegan and who happened to be taking 60 supplements a day. Looking back on it, I'm like, what the heck? But at the time I was like, oh, she's cool. She takes 60 supplements a day. I guess she knows a lot about vitamins. And so she gave me, vitamin D and vitamin B12. And I'm waiting. At the time I was having joint pain. I felt like I was 100 years old. I'm waiting for my big vitamin breakthrough. And nothing really happened. My bones did harden up because I had soft bones at the time, but I didn't feel mentally like great. So just fixing those deficiencies alone wasn't enough in my case to move the needle. So yeah, the vegetable situation really did not serve me well.
And maybe, maybe you can inform me on this, but I've heard that you can actually see on a brain scan people who have ADD and ADHD. I don't know if it's swelling or if it's some atrophy, but that it's an actual thing and it's an actual condition, and it can be caused by so many different things like perimenopause, hormone imbalances, thyroid issues. Do you have any idea what the root is that you needed to heal?
Okay, so that's a really great question. First of all, the thing about the brain scans, it's controversial right now. I'm not going to say the guy's name, but there is a person charging something like $5,000-$6,000 for a brain scan to tell you whether or not you have ADHD. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you're meeting the symptoms and that they're affecting you, why don't scan your brain? Come on, guys. So in terms of can you see it on a brain scan, I'm gonna leave that one because the science is kind of all over the place with that. What causes it? So that's a great question. Right now, the running theory is that it's something you're born with in most cases. So it's considered neurodevelopmental disorder. So then if it's something you're born with, then how come some people are getting better at it? So my best understanding of it is it's the way that your brain is kind of built, let's say out of the box, and then certain things just kind of make it worse, make it so it's not functioning. And in terms of things like menopause and perimenopause and hormones, it's not that suddenly you develop ADHD, it's that a few things are going on. One, the hormones are getting out of whack. And there's a lot, for example, there's a connection between estrogen and dopamine. That's one. Another one, we got to think about what's going on in a menopausal or perimenopausal woman's life in general. A lot of things. A lot of times she has kids, and a lot of times she has aging parents. Just those two things on their own is a lot of work, okay? Never mind, she might have a job. She might have other health issues going on. Just dealing with, that's just an age where women deal with a lot of stuff, right? So just like what happened to me when I finally got out of the house and I had to do all my adulting, menopause is like adulting on steroids. You have usually much more responsibilities, and you're starting to get to an age where you don't feel great if you pull an all-nighter like you could when you were 18, and so it really can catch up with you, and a lot of women get diagnosed at that age, and so that's where that comes from. I think there was a third one that you asked me and I forgot what it was. Oh, thyroid, right? Thyroid. In terms of the direct link between thyroid and ADHD, I'm not sure, but I'll just say off the top of my head, it does affect your energy, and there's a lot to do with ADHD and stress, right? An ADHD brain is often a brain that's just constantly under stress. So anything that makes you feel stressed or tired or just affects your overall health is going to affect your ADHD, whether you like it or not.
Where I'm getting this from is I have chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and you can get a neuroquant done, which I think mine was $200, and it's an MRI with a neuroquant analysis, and they are able to see certain things on there. And a ton of people who have this chronic inflammation have ADHD and ADD, a ton of them. Have you heard of SIRS before?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so there's a huge link between, at least in our case, the brain and the inflammation and the scans, and so that's where I was coming from with that. But we do have a question. Go ahead, Ellie.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead and bring up that question.
Sorry, sometimes I'm really rude and I skip because I get so excited about our guests. But we do have a question from Darth Carnivore. What all precipitated getting your ADHD diagnosis at 35? Or did you say it was 39? Was it 30?
35. Mm-hmm.
35. Okay. What happened to seek out the diagnosis?
Well, it was the most ADHD thing ever. So I of course heard about ADHD, but whenever I heard about it, I said, well, that's not me because I don't have a problem concentrating. I can concentrate, just not always on the thing I'm supposed to concentrate on, right? Like I have homework to do. I can sit down and write a song. I'm not a songwriter, but I'm going to sit down and write one. Well, so I never had this sensation necessarily of not being able to concentrate. Although looking back, like, yeah, I do have trouble if somebody gives me directions, like go here, turn left, blah, blah, blah. I did have trouble with that, but it wasn't the sensation. I thought that ADHD was supposed to be the sensation of like swimming underwater and like you just really can't concentrate on anything. And it is in some cases for some people they do feel like that. But for the most part, I never felt like that. I was zoning out in class, doodling and whatever. I didn't connect the dots. I just thought that the teacher was boring, and maybe they were. But nobody else was doodling as much as I was, So a couple of friends mentioned it to me and I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't believe you guys. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't have it. And then one day I was walking down the street in Brooklyn, New York, where I was living at the time, and there was a big box of books on the sidewalk and it said, free books, take one. I said, ooh, free books. So I started looking through them and there was an ADHD book and I don't remember which one it was. It might have been Driven to Distraction. And I was like, let's take it. Why not? Looks interesting. So I took the book home and of course started reading it, stayed up all night as you do. And I was like, oh no, this is me. And so then it gets even more ADHD. Ready for this? So then I was like, well, obviously I need to go to a therapist. So I scheduled an appointment with a psychologist. I went to the psychologist and in the most ADHD of fashions forgot to bring it up. I proceeded, I proceeded to do 6 months of cognitive behavioral therapy, which helped me a lot with a lot of self-esteem issues, but did nothing for my ADHD. In fact, made me feel worse when the therapist was like, hey, why don't you give yourself a reward afterwards? And I tried and it didn't. And at that point I had my own business. I was sitting outside playing on my phone instead of going into my office, sometimes for 8 hours a day, sitting in the chair in the hallway, unable to open the door and go into my office. And here I am paying a professional brain person who's telling me just give yourself a reward. So finally, 6 months in, she did help me with my self-esteem to her credit. But 6 months in, I was like, oh, by the way, the whole reason I came here was because I think I have ADHD. And she goes, oh, I don't think you do because you make really good eye contact. And I said, oh, I think I have it. And I was thinking, well, I don't want to be making eye contact with you. I want to be looking at all those freaking amazing books that you have on your shelf, but that would be super rude. So I was forcing myself to make eye contact. Likewise, forcing myself because I wanted to be polite. Likewise, I didn't get in trouble for acting out as a kid because I had a little bit of shyness as a kid and that kind of mitigated it. So I didn't act out because I didn't want to get in trouble. I was so shy that it tampered that down. I don't know what happened, but I'm no longer shy. Anyways, she goes, let me give you a questionnaire. Fill it out and let's see. So I go home, I fill it out. I got an almost perfect score. I then proceeded to spend 3 hours putting puppies onto the questionnaire because somehow I thought that was a priority instead of doing the work I needed to do for my business. Brought it to her, puppies and almost perfect score and all. And she was like, okay, you can talk to a psychiatrist to see if you want to do medication. So that's how I got my diagnosis at 35. I don't think you can. I mean, I challenge you to give me a more ADHD story than that.
Well, I just love that you decided to adorn it. Obviously, you wanted it to be a positive experience, and that was the way you decided to express that. For anyone who doesn't know, can you explain the difference between ADD and ADHD?
Yeah, actually, it's just the older name. They've kind of updated it now. So ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder, and then ADHD is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So they added in the hyper. But so sometimes it's used rather erroneously. ADD is sometimes used to refer to inattentive ADHD, but really it's all ADHD. And we have at the moment it's considered 3 subtypes right now. So we have inattentive subtypes. That's the one that you tend to be called spacey, right? Where somebody's talking to you and you're kind of thinking about something else, or someone's giving you directions and you're kind of over here, or you're in class and you're not jumping around, but you're not really paying attention. So that's inattentive. It's got other symptoms too, but in a nutshell. And hyperactive is, you want to be moving around. You have trouble sitting in a chair. You feel like you're driven by a motor. Sometimes you may have trouble waiting your turn, or you may have trouble in a conversation not interrupting people. Not everyone, but some people do have that. So that's considered hyperactive. Don't start diagnosing yourself. And then we have the most common one, which is combined type. So combined type, last I checked, is about 70% of us are combined type. So we've got a little of the inattentive and a little of the hyperactive, or a lot of the inattentive and a lot of the hyperactive.
How long did it take you to heal?
To heal. Okay, so heal is an interesting word, right? In terms of me suddenly feeling a big switch, I don't know the exact date because I didn't know this was going to happen, right? I just wanted to look cute in crop tops. I literally had no other goal when I started this whole thing. But I want to say it was about a month of, after a month is when I started feeling rested when I woke up, and that procrastination thing just went away. I'm not saying I'm like a robot now and I just sit down and work but it's no longer this like, I gotta do it. That's gone. I can do it. I might get distracted. I might turn, I might look at Facebook. I might do something like that. I might, go get a cup of coffee that I didn't need, decaf, or whatever. But I'm able to sit down and do stuff when I want to do it without freaking out, without this, nervousness, without waiting until midnight. So that, and then also my emotions, wow. So I didn't talk about that before, but that was a big mess. Wow, was that a mess? And then after I hit puberty, I also got the lovely addition of PMDD, right, which is severe PMS, since I was an adolescent. It was awful. It was, something we laugh about, PMS, eating ice cream, crying. No, it was, a week sometimes of being extremely bloated, pain, cramps, sometimes crying in my bed for 3-4 days, fights with whoever my husband or boyfriend at the time was, serious fights. When I was younger and didn't understand what was going on, I would literally break up with whatever boyfriend every month and then get back together 7 days later. I must have been really cute when I was young because they really went through a lot. So, the PMDD, plus just in general, having a short temper, being very quick to be irritable. I wouldn't always express it because, again, I do have a little bit of shyness and politeness. I'm not going to run around being mean to everyone. But this is something we see in a lot of ADHD people, especially with the people I'm close to. I feel comfortable with them. And so the anger kind of comes out a little more easily. So that's how, you'll hear parents talk about this. Like they'll be like, my child behaves at school, and then they come home and they're a monster. What am I doing wrong? And it's like, actually, you're not doing anything wrong. Your child just feels comfortable at home. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. Your child feels really comfortable around you. That's why they're running around. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's that they, not all children, of course, but, that they just feel a little bit tenser at school, and then they come home and they let it out. And who gets it? Mom, dad, brother and sister, hopefully not the dog, So that's kind of how that goes, in terms of emotions. So my emotions as well. And it was really interesting. I couldn't describe, let's say, it's not that all of a sudden it's like sunshine and like everywhere I go, like I fart and like a rainbow comes out, because I don't fart that much anymore because I don't eat so many vegetables. But it's not like I'm floating on a cloud and I'm like Miss Hippie Zen, whatever. But I did notice something really interesting, which is that somebody says something that's annoying, or let's say a family member or a really close, person that normally I would just maybe snap at. It's like I have this little millisecond that's like, is that really a big deal? Then I can say, no, it's not, or yes, it is. But whereas before it was just 0 to 100, just angry. For whatever reason, it could even be if I got interrupted, because that is a problem that you can see with ADHD is this difficulty with task switching, context switching. So you're, really engrossed in something. You're almost like hyper focused on something, and then somebody comes in and they're like, "Do you want a glass of water?" And you're like, like you almost bite their head off. And they're like, what did I do? I just offered you a glass of water. I'm the nicest person ever. And it's because it almost physically is painful to switch your focus like that. So sometimes I still have that a little bit when I'm really, really focused on something. You have that too. But it's not like it used to be where it would really cause a lot of fights. And the thing that sucks about it is that it's not like I'm, when this happens to you, you snap at somebody, it's not like you're like, I'm right, they're wrong. You usually feel guilty afterwards. Like, what you did, like, they just offered me a glass of water. Like, why did I snap at them? But you just couldn't help it. You just couldn't help it. And so on top of all of the difficulty you could be having from ADHD, you now have a lovely layer of shame. And, oh my God, I suck. and oh my God, I'm always late, and oh my God, I have the worst temper, and oh my God, I'm lazy, and oh my God, da, 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 da. And so you have this like constant script on top of that. And it's like, no wonder everything's so hard.
That is so rough. Like I'm really glad that you took the time to explain it, because if someone doesn't have this condition, they might not understand it. And I think a lot of it's unfortunate, but a lot of people will kind of brush it off as like, oh, you're lazy, or you're just rude, or you just have your head in the clouds. And so I wanted to ask you, because I like to try and be more positive, right? As opposed to those kind of like thoughts. So like, what would you consider like to be your superpower when it comes to ADHD? Is it like the hyper focus, or what do you think?
Okay, I appreciate your positivity. I do not believe ADHD is a superpower. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I'm
But
just
it's
trying to be
okay.
nice.
But let's talk about it. Because it is something that comes up a lot. People are like, ADHD is my superpower. I don't think it is. Here's how I can tell you that it's not. If I said to you, all you have to do is drink this, and it will give you the super strongest case of ADHD in the world, would you drink this?
No, I'm good.
No,
Thanks.
you wouldn't. You wouldn't drink it. It's not a superpower. It's really difficult. It makes things really hard. However, a lot of us have superpowers. Are they because of the ADHD? Are they just bonus things? I don't know. But a lot of us, for example, a lot of us are really creative. A lot of us are really empathetic. When we're interested in something, forget it. There's no stopping us, which can be great. It can be sometimes to our detriment. Sometimes we might not even get up from the desk, and we then get a bladder infection because we haven't gone to the bathroom, because we didn't drink water or pee for 12 hours. True story. It happens to a lot of people. So our superpowers, I would not say that the ADHD itself is a superpower, but I would say a lot of us have amazing superpowers on the side. And so a big part of ADHD is, recovering from ADHD and just living well with ADHD is figuring out what is good about you. What are your strengths? What do you love? And, while you're on the subject, what do you really not love? And maybe forgiving yourself if you can't always do that. Like if you really can't clean your house, maybe somebody can help you. Like what resources do you have? Do you have a family member that can help you? Do you have the money to pay for a cleaner, even if it's once every 2 months? Things like that. So that's what I think about superpower. And I appreciate you trying to be positive.
Yeah, it's really funny because I kind of don't see it as a superpower, but I know that there's like a little bit of a culture with that, and so I definitely don't want to step on people's toes and be like, I don't know. I think it's important to look at both sides, and I kind of I don't know. I've never been diagnosed, but I feel like I have a little bit of that tunnel vision where I am working and focusing on like washing the dishes. I'm washing the dishes. My kids could be screaming in the background. My husband could be trying to talk to me. And then I'm like, no, I'm just going to finish this. And then I can go. I mean, maybe I'm just overreaching, but I love how you said that. So we did have another question from Darth Carnivore. Do you take any medications or ongoing therapy to manage your ADHD?
So at the moment, I don't take any medications. I'm not doing currently any therapy, but I do work with a lot of ADHD coaches on and off. Sometimes we do trades and we kind of coach each other. And sometimes I just, straight up pay for my own ADHD coach, or I go to group coaching. Could be for ADHD or could just be kind of in general. A funny thing is a lot of times entrepreneurs, there's a lot of ADHD there. So sometimes just by going to a meeting, like a mastermind or something for entrepreneurs, I meet a lot of ADHDers too. And that can kind of be supportive just to be able to talk about it. So I'm currently not in therapy. Therapy does help a lot of people with certain things. It's very important to have a therapist who understands what's going on for sure. And not to be afraid of trying a few different ones to make sure you find the right fit. Just because, sometimes you'll just get somebody that maybe just doesn't understand, or they understand, but they're just not the right fit for you. And, oh, well, you just need to try. So if you try therapy and it doesn't work for you with the first therapist, don't think it's because you're broken. It's just not the right therapist, or maybe therapy's not right for you, but keep trying. Don't get discouraged if that's a route that you would like to go. Personally, I'm not taking any medications right now for ADHD. I have tried 2 different ones, And I can talk about that if you guys want to.
Yeah, tell us.
So the first one, when I got my diagnosis when I was 35, I was put on a stimulant. I was given a stimulant and I took it. And it kicked in about after an hour and 5 minutes, and I breathed out a breath that it felt like I'd been holding in for 35 years.
Oh man.
Okay. I said, okay. I got up, I cleaned the whole house. I did a whole bunch of Photoshop. I was working as a photographer at the time. I did like hours of Photoshop. And my husband at the time, my ex-husband, I'm on my second husband now. My ex-husband came in and I was like, this is amazing. I did all this stuff. Look, oh my God. Like, look at this, look at this. And he was kind of like freaked out. And so I kind of continued a little bit with that. I had really awful side effects. I had a headache that felt like I'd never felt a pain like that before. I was constantly dehydrated. I was grinding my teeth. And I was having trouble sleeping. So I know there are people that will say you should have given it more time, but I didn't feel like myself. I really felt weird. And so I only got to try it for a few weeks because maybe about a month. And then I went traveling, and I was traveling for 2 years and didn't really need it. I think I took it like once or twice when I had to do my taxes or something. Then fast forward to living in a new country. I live in Colombia in South America now. I decided to, I kind of like forgot, this is another ADHD thing. I kind of forgot that I had it. And I was like, doo-doo-doo. And then I was struggling with my lesson planning, and I was like, oh yeah, I really should talk to somebody about my ADHD. So I went and got another prescription, this time a different stimulant here that they have in Colombia, long acting. And it really, I never had a panic attack before. I had my first panic attack on a public bus in the middle of the Colombian mountains. Not cool. I just had a really rough time. And this is my experience. This is not medical advice. This is not what anyone else should do. This is what happened to me. I had a really rough time. I couldn't, when I sat down to do my lesson planning, I should have, made like a 1 or 2 page lesson. It was a 1 hour English lesson, couple words, some pictures. Let's go. I made 40, 50, 60 page lesson plans. I gave them to the students. They were like, is this for the whole year? I was like, this is today. Let's go. And they were like, and I actually became a bad teacher because when you're teaching a foreign language, you're supposed to shut up and let the student talk. And you're just supposed to, help them along the way. You're not supposed to be like, but I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I know I'm talking a lot now, but that's because I'm being interviewed. So normally I listen, right? I'm much more of a listener, but I'm talking today. So anyway, I didn't enjoy it. I felt weird. And then there was this whole thing of like, should I take it on the weekend? Shouldn't I take it? Oh my gosh, it's 12 p.m. I forgot to take it. Should I take it now? Did I take it? And then I also couldn't drink coffee, which I was a big fan of at the time. So all these different things. And then I also just really felt like this is not who I am. I'm grinding my teeth. I feel weird. I just felt weird. And so I stopped it again and went back to, being a little bit more scatterbrained. I don't think it honestly fixed everything. I think it just made it a little bit easier. But for me personally, it wasn't worth it. It really wasn't worth it. And that's just for me. Some people love it. The interesting thing about stimulants is you can try it and you'll know pretty quickly. You'll know within an hour or two if that's the right dose and the right medication, you'll know. So it's not like, SSRIs or anti-anxiety meds where you need to be on them for weeks to see a result. You'll know if that's the right dose and the right medication for you, you'll know within an hour, hour and a half. Yeah.
So now you're an ADHD coach?
So now I'm an ADHD coach and a nutritionist as well. So I also work with people who don't have ADHD, who need general help with their nutrition. We can, work on things like autoimmune, diabetes, all that good stuff, or all that not so good stuff, all that stuff that we're all struggling with. But I also help people that have ADHD that want support. So not everybody I work with wants to try a full-on diet switch, but many people do. And so we'll work with usually something like either paleo, keto, or carnivore, depending on the person's symptoms, depending on their lifestyle, and depending on what they want to try.
And with the diet changes, you see huge changes in people's symptoms.
So I've seen everything. So I've seen some people have huge changes and, oh my gosh, I'm like a new person. And then I've seen other people that say that, yeah, most of the time I'm doing pretty well, but I still want to take my medication. And sometimes things go off the rails and I have a bad day. So the diet's not the only thing, right? We also have to get your stress under control. We also have to get your sleep under control. And life happens, right? And so I don't want to sit here and say like, okay, just go on keto and all your dreams will come true, right? Vote for me and all your wildest dreams will come true. It's definitely a spectrum. Some people, it's like night or day. In my case, it's like night or day. I feel like a new person. For other people, they can feel a change. Some people feel a change when they're on a stricter version or not. Some people like to combine it with medication. So I've seen everything. So I don't want to sit here and say, oh yeah, all you got to do is, eat some bacon and everything will be fine. No, it really does vary by the person, by their situation, and also what else is going on in their life, their stress, their sleep, their level of responsibilities, and all that stuff. And also remember, we always have that layer of shame too. If that's still going on, that's going to make things difficult as well.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty, and you're being realistic by saying, it's not, you could still possibly have some symptoms, or you might not feel 100% your best, even though you switch your diet. What do you think, why do you think it works? Why do you think producing ketones and being in ketosis, why is that beneficial for someone who has ADHD?
Well, according to the current research, there are currently 5 mechanisms that I know of as to why ketogenic diets, which includes carnivore and to some extent paleo diets, to some extent can also help. Okay, here we go. So I remember it with GONG-E. So G starts with glucose hypometabolism, the correction of that. So glucose hypometabolism is what it sounds. It's you're not using enough of your glucose. So what happens? Our brains, need some glucose. This is true, although we do not have to eat it. We all know that. So what happens? Our brains can be swimming in glucose, but we can become somewhat insulin resistant at the blood-brain barrier. When we become insulin resistant at the blood-brain barrier, that's when we get what I like to call candied brain. So your brain is swimming in sugar. It's getting damaged from the sugar, but meanwhile, you're not able to properly use the energy that your brain is swimming in. So this is called glucose hypometabolism. This we see in a lot of mental health disorders. There are some where we see the opposite. We see hypermetabolism, but for most of them, it's going to be hypometabolism. This swimming in sugar, and it's like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. So that's the G. Then O is oxidative stress. This one we're talking about SIRS, like you were talking about. This is where that kind of comes in. So the fact that you may get full-on ADHD. You may get ADHD-like symptoms. I'm not like the ADHD police. It's not like a secret club. If you're having the symptoms, that's good enough for me. I'm not going to say you weren't born with it. No, if you're having ADHD symptoms, welcome to the cool kids club, right? So the O is oxidative stress. So we know that ketogenic diets do reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. One of the ways that they do this is the process of producing ketones is less oxidative than the process of, doing the whole thing with sugar. It just produces, less oxidative stress. So that's one. Then there's the N, which is for neurotransmitters. So ketogenic diets have been shown in a few studies. Okay, one of them was with rats. I know, but they have been shown to help with the neurotransmitter balance. So how is a whole big thing we could go into, but basically they help with different things, like they help raise GABA, which calms us down, and lower glutamate, which hypes us up. So we don't need to be so hyper usually. So it gives us a little less of the hyper and a little more of the calm, plus helps with dopamine. So all that kind of good stuff. And serotonin is 95% of our serotonin is made in our gut. Everyone always talks about dopamine when it comes to ADHD, but a lot of times there's going to be other stuff going on. We can feel depressed. We can feel anxious. Whether or not we have full on major depressive disorder is another story. But there's usually something going on with most of our neurotransmitters. So that's the N. Then there's the G. So GONG is we'll come back to GONG because gut microbiome. There we go. So the gut microbiome, from what I've seen in the research, it does seem to improve. We have more beneficial gut bugs if we go on a ketogenic or carnivore diet. And our gut bugs have been linked to, dysbiosis in the gut has been linked to ADHD. There's been studies where they've noticed that even in little babies that had certain gut microbiome profiles, they were more likely to go on to develop ADHD in childhood and later into adulthood. So that's the G, and the last one is E for epigenetics. And so epigenetics is when we have genes and certain things turn our genes on or off. So it's like we have the genes we're born with, and then some that we are born with a switch, and then things can flip the switch. So they have noticed now, and this is from studies as well, few studies, but there are studies that this kind of diet can switch on certain genes. One, I believe it's called the DRD1, or maybe it's the DRD2. Somebody sciencey help me out here. Receptor, which is responsible for, for dopamine signaling, things like that. It gets kind of put into the right position, let's say, for a very lack of a scientific word. So we got those 5 things, right? So we've got the, to review, glucose hypometabolism, reducing oxidative stress, improving neurotransmitter balance, the gut microbiome, I always forget that one, and epigenetics. Those are the 5 mechanisms that Gong E, yeah, Darth. Gong E, yeah. Good luck with the second G. It's the gut microbiome. So that's my understanding of it.
We do have another question from Darth, and he says, "Sorry for asking so many questions,
No,
but
I
we
love
just
it. I
want
love
to say thank you for asking questions." Oh, we did at the same time. Sorry to keep asking questions, but have you had any success getting little girls to try the keto carnivore diet? Any advice for a parent?
Yes. So to answer your question, I mainly work with adults, and so I don't have too much experience with kids. Here's what I'll say about kids. Kids are more flexible, let's say. Like, kids bounce out of things more quickly, right? They haven't been on the planet as long. They don't have as much kind of gunk, damage, whatever going on. So kids might not need to go to keto. They might not need to go to carnivore. You could try something like paleo to start with a kid, and you might find that that's all you need to do. So for kids, it's really, really down to the individual. It's down to the situation. But if I had to give you a general idea, what I would say is, let's think about first kind of getting kind of the junk out first, especially the food coloring, artificial flavors, as much of that out as you can. That would be my step 1. Just see what that does. That might even give you a big change. Then moving to something like paleo, right? So not worrying about my fat, my protein, just doing the very kind of natural foods, paleo, pre-agrarian, or, before we had agriculture. So none of the grains, stuff like that. Mostly just vegetables, fruits, and meat, right? Start with that. Then if you still feel like you need more, then look into going to keto or carnivore. If there are autoimmune situation, if you think there are autoimmune issues happening, then maybe more towards carnivore. If not, you could try keto first, or whichever one seems to work. Also, you have to be careful with kids. They're kids and they want to eat what they want to eat, and it's we don't want to make kids nervous about food, right? We don't want to make them feel bad about food, especially we see this a little bit more in autism than ADHD, but some kids with ADHD will have food aversions. They may be picky eaters. And so, sometimes parents will say, well, just eat it, just do it. And they don't understand that if you're, super picky eater, you have a serious food aversion, someone telling you just eat the whatever, can really feel like someone telling you just jump off the building. It really is that level of no, right? So we got to tread lightly with kids. At 9 years old, you're more the boss. As we get into teenagers, we want to give them a little bit more agency. Like, hey, can you think of some recipes? Like, but even little kids, you can ask them to, help a little bit with some of the food preparation. So it's something you just got to try. There is a film, it was kind of controversial, but it's called The Magic Pill. It's definitely worth checking out. Do you guys know if it's on YouTube or Netflix?
I think it was on YouTube for a while.
Okay. So it's
I
called The Magic
hadn't seen
Pill.
it so long.
Okay, it's called The Magic Pill. So it doesn't really have an ADHD kid in there, but it's got some kids with autism. I won't spoil the surprise, but interesting, like amazing stuff happens. So it kind of shows the journey of getting these kids from the junk to the healthier food. And so it might be a good thing to check out. It's called The Magic Pill, just so you can see what happens. So if there's a girl in there, and when they first switch her over, she just has a meltdown. Absolute meltdown. It's almost like, I've never worked in, drug rehab or something like that, but I could almost imagine it's like somebody getting off, like in the movie Trainspotting, when they're getting off of heroin and they're just like that. It's that level. She's really, so I'm not saying that because, oh my God, that's what's going to happen to your kid, but just so that you're prepared that this isn't going to be like one day to the next, there's gonna be some resistance depending on what she's eating now. Just so to see that it might take a little bit longer and it might be a little bit more dramatic than you thought. But once you get over the hump, if it works, it's really gonna work.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of moms about switching their kids over to a more meat-based diet, and that's their choice. What they choose is best for their children, low carb or keto or carnivore, whichever they choose. And that particular scene I remember from the Magic Pill documentary, and I'm not going to spoil it either, but it's miraculous what can happen. And I've seen it with my own children. Like my daughter was an extremely picky eater, and we were kind of doing that, like, come on, just eat the food. And it made my stomach, like a pit in my stomach kind of opened up, because it's like, I think that is what happens. Like, I think children really they have this fear of something. So you need to be very gentle and, try to make it as easy as you can. And then if it's too much, just take your foot off the gas, just give it time, let them breathe. Would you say that that's good advice?
Yeah, and I would say, don't be afraid to fail. Like, for example, I used to be a pack-a-day smoker. It took me forever, to quit. I quit, I started, I quit, I started, I quit, I started, So if I had given up the first time I tried to quit, I would still be a smoker. So it's the same thing, I think food is even harder because you have to eat, right? So, if you try this and it's just a disaster, I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm just, trying to manage expectations. If you try putting your child on a therapeutic diet and it's a disaster, okay, go back, try again, give it some time, regroup, continue talking, getting support from others. There's tons of support groups online. You can work with professionals if you want, or just getting the experience of others in, Facebook groups or YouTube channels. There's so much information now at our fingertips, and just know that it's, you're on here. You probably know that it's worth it to try. So just keep trying and don't beat yourself up if it's hard, because it's probably going to be hard.
I sneak a lot of butter on my kids' meat and salt. And then they just seem to be like, wow, this is the best meat you've ever cooked. I'm like,
hey,
no,
thanks, Mom.
every single time. And then another thing I just have to mention, or Judy Cho would be really mad, is that if changing your diet is making you feel better, but it's not the ticket, you need to check your toxins. Perhaps you have mold exposure. Perhaps you have a toxin exposure. Perhaps you're in a new home and it's off-gassing on you.
Oh, did we lose Adrian?
I think so. Yeah, but what
Adrian, come back.
Come back. But I'll echo what she said. Yeah, it is. Oh no, Adrian.
There we go.
Am I back? I don't know where it cut off, but just check your toxins as well, because it could be the air you're breathing. It could be that stuff. But you did catch the butter, right?
Yeah, we got the butter, and and it's about SIRS, and I think that's definitely a good thing to look at as well. Another thing I'll say, I don't have hard data or anything like that to back up what I'm about to say, but a lot of people with ADHD, especially children, sometimes have allergies. And so just looking into that too. There's even some people out there that are saying that ADHD isn't even a thing. It's just a sleep disorder. Now, if that's true or not, I'm not going to say that. However, I will say that even though I consider myself, I'm not going to say my ADHD is gone. I would say my symptoms are about 95% gone, right? My PMDD is 100% gone, but my ADHD about 95% gone. I'm still fidgeting with my rings. You guys can see that. I'm still
I'm fidgeting with this the whole time.
Oh, okay. I know. I was like, why didn't I zoom the camera in? Now people can see me fidgeting with my rings, man. But where was I going with that? I was going with...
Sorry about that.
No, you didn't do it with me. I did that all on my own.
This reminds me of me trying to do dishes this morning. I mean, it took like 4 hours today. It's the week before, or it's the week before the cycle starts, and this is when it always just gets like,
So I know what you mean.
I just spin and I spin, and I swear I'm going to get out the door by 8:30, and then it's 3:30, and we finally went for our walk.
Oh, I know what you mean. No, but to what I was saying about, allergies and sleep. So there are people that say that ADHD isn't a real thing, it's just a sleep condition. I don't agree with that necessarily, but I will say that even though I consider myself to be, on the other side of it, I would say 95% of my symptoms are gone. If I have a bad night's sleep, forget it. Forget it. I will be jumping around the house. For me, it tends to come out more as hyper. I will be super hyper, jumping around the house, singing songs. In the back of my head, it'll be like, didn't you have to do? No, I didn't. And jumping around, and I might get in a bad mood for no reason. And so it will come back. My emotions will come back. Sometimes it's the day after I don't sleep, and sometimes it's 2 days after I don't sleep. So all of that to say, when we're talking about kids, it's not just diet, right? So I know that we're all here together because we're fans of a certain diet. We have to be careful. Diet is part of it. It's not the whole thing, right? It could be, like Adrian saying, toxins. Sleep is so important. A lot of kids now are, on screens until really late. Sometimes because it's fun, sometimes because that's the way they do their homework. Teenagers sometimes have to get up super early for school. Where I live, this is actually the city that gets up earlier than any city in the world. So, and here in beautiful Medellin, Colombia, we get up earlier than anybody in the world on average, because a lot of people here actually kind of migrated from the countryside. So we have a kind of farm vibe in terms of our schedule. Anyway, for kids, getting up that early, especially for teenagers, is not really the best scene. So if you're noticing that your teenager is having a lot of trouble getting out of bed, which can be exacerbated, with ADHD too, because we have problems with our cortisol and melatonin a lot of times, can you help your child somehow to get more sleep? It's easier said than done, but can you help them?
Absolutely. That's all such great advice. I would love to give an opportunity to share your YouTube channel for you to talk about your coaching, how people can find you, and all that awesome stuff. So let me share your YouTube page. Can you tell us about what kind of videos you like to make, how you like to help people?
Oh yeah. So let's see. The last video I made was about a lot of myths, which I kind of want to talk about if we have time. A lot
Yeah,
of
do it.
myths and or bad advice that's out there right now. That's my little YouTube channel. Myths and or bad advice that's out there that we're all hearing. So my YouTube is Julie Saad Wellness. Saad is with 2 A's, and my website is juliesaad with 2 A's.com. You can find out all about me there. So yeah, let's talk about some of the myths if y'all have time.
Yeah, sure.
So, for example, one thing that we always hear, right, is you have to have high protein for ADHD. Have you guys heard that before?
I would think high fat. I don't know.
Yeah. So I agree with you. So almost anything that you're going to see about ADHD and food these days is going to be protein. Everyone's talking about protein. Obviously, you need protein, but you don't need, to eat a high protein diet. That's just not the name of the game. It's not a good energy source, at the end of the day. Our bodies want to use fats or carbs as our energy source. It's easier to turn that into energy, not protein. Protein's a very expensive process for the body. So a lot of times, a lot of people that come to work with me have started a ketogenic or carnivore diet already, and they come to me to help them because they're like, I'm starving or I'm tired or this, that, and the other. And almost every time they come to me, they're eating like chicken breast and broccoli.
Oh no.
And or salad with a little bit of salmon. And I'm like, you guys, like, no. But they're like, yeah, I'm on this, keto high protein diet. I'm like, keto's not a high protein diet, you guys. Keto is high fat. If you're doing it for mental health, it's very high fat, moderate protein, low to no carb diet, depending on what flavor of keto you're doing. So, if you keep hearing this protein, have a protein snack, No, protein snack also, I don't like that because protein, again, it doesn't just instantly go into your body. So if you're having a snack at 10 a.m. expecting that to perk you up, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. That protein's not going to get into your body immediately. So that's a myth that I hear a lot. And then another thing, just kind of in general, that I don't like so much about, let's say, the kind of general advice here. And I'm talking mostly about, stuff we see online and the kind of like DIY, thing is I see a lot of the tips and the tricks and the hacks and the this and the that and the that. And those are great, but I think they have a time and a place. If you are very, very, let's say, very, very sick, whatever that means, if that means that you're not eating the food that's right for you, if you're exposed to toxins, if you're not sleeping, if you're in a really stressful home environment or work environment, or you're under a serious amount of financial stress, you name it, but you're going to buy this special app or this cute little planner to go with your 500 other planners. That's fun. That's very fun. It's very fun to download the app. It's very fun to get the planner, but that's not going to fix what's going on. So I'm guilty of it too. I have a couple little blogs with the tips and the tricks and, exercise in your pajamas. It's easier than putting on workout clothes. Sure, fine. But that has to come at the right point in the process, So I would encourage anybody who is trying to deal with their ADHD, whether you're using medication, whether you're using food, whether you're using a combination, you really need to work on the underlying stuff. Otherwise, it's like putting a radio in a car that has a flat tire. Like, it's fun, but it's not going to go very far, right? So I don't think that's taught enough. And I think that all ADHD coaches, therapists, primary care physicians, everyone should be encouraging people to eat correctly, take care of themselves, and should be educated in that. And that should be part of curriculum for anybody who becomes an ADHD coach or therapist or what have you. Unfortunately, it's not. And it becomes this thing of like, oh, let's think about it, or let's this, or let's that. And that makes you feel worse, right? It's like when I went to the therapist and she said, give yourself a reward, and it didn't work. And then I was like, oh, I really suck. So let's be careful about therapizing something that also has a strong biological component. That's my bias is always toward the biology, so some people will disagree with me, but I think that, if you're ignoring your biology, you're really, really, really shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah. So that's kind of another little myth that I think, or a little thing that kind of pisses me off about it. And then another one is that, talking about tips and tricks in general, is that guess what? They don't always work for us. And some of the really, really mainstream advice really doesn't work for us. And then some of the ADHD advice might work for me, it might not work for somebody else. So that's really important to just try and to keep an open mind. Much like with the, trying a therapeutic diet in a child, with yourself, you just want to keep trying. Maybe you tried a new way of making your to-do list for the day and it didn't work. Just keep trying and keep trying. And if you try some, fancy online guru trick and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means it wasn't the trick for you, is something that is important to keep in mind. And then one other one, which I think is important for those of us who are on these, therapeutic diets like keto and carnivore, because what we always hear is eat until you're comfortably stuffed, drink when you're thirsty, da-da-da-da-da. Great advice. However, if you're dealing with an ADHD brain, there might be a little bit of mishmash, mix up in the signaling. For example, I am thirsty as hell right now, and I just now realized it. Why? Because I'm so excited to be talking to you guys, I didn't even notice I'm thirsty. And my voice, I probably sound like a frog, so let's have some water. So yeah, drink when you're thirsty, but guess what? You might not notice you're thirsty. Eat when you're hungry. You might not notice you're hungry. You might be on a stimulant medication that reduces your appetite, right? So this is great advice to listen to your body, but sometimes your body is not really telling you the whole story. So you have to figure out what works for you to get around that. So for something like thirst, can you figure out some times in the day when you're just always going to check in with yourself? Am I thirsty? Not saying guzzle the water. I'm just saying check in with yourself, because if you stop and think about it, you'll probably be like, okay, yeah, I do have a dry mouth. But otherwise you might straight up forget. Or, if you notice you're not eating enough because you're just forgetting to eat, can you check in with yourself? Whether that's that you set an alarm, whether that's you have another cue, like whenever, I don't know, such and such thing happens, whenever, if your neighbor's dog always barks at 7, whenever my neighbor's dog barks, I will decide if I'm hungry or not, things like that. So kind of checking in with yourself. This is something that's called interoceptive awareness. It's basically understanding how you feel. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? And even emotionally, are you angry? Are you tired? Are you this? Are you that? Sometimes we just don't notice. This can happen to anybody, but this can really happen to us. So I love the advice about eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, da, 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 da. But with the caveat of you might have those signals a little bit mishmashed. And if that's the case, then can you scaffold that so that you just at least check in? Listen, my froggy ass voice. So you just check in if you're thirsty and you, so you check in with yourself is what I'm saying.
Somebody asked, do you know, I'm going to say her name, Ayla. Is it Ayla? Ayla Wells?
Alia.
Alia. I'm sorry, Alia.
Alia, please return my message. Yes, I have reached out to her. She wrote back to me and we keep meaning to get in touch. And she does not live in the same city. She lives, I think she lives further up north. And yeah, we need to hang out. Alia, if you're there, we are trying to
give Julie a call. Give her a call. That's awesome.
We keep trying to get in touch. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, we are coming up at the hour. I think this was a fantastic conversation. I actually learned so much, and I'm starting to question everything about myself now. But that's okay. Yeah. We're not self-diagnosing. It's let's not do that. We like to end the show with a group roar, which I totally forgot to tell you earlier. We like to count down, and we like to, because we're all lionesses. Would you be willing to do that with us tonight?
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so.
All right, everybody, get your roars ready. 3, 2, 1.
I did an evil laugh. Wait, that wasn't right.
I like it.
Mine was an evil roar today.
Mine was a shy riff. Mine was I'm cute.
You are cute. I love that. Thanks, lady. This is super informative, enlightening power hour. Yeah, definitely. So come on, guys. I want to see the roars. Show us the roars.
Aid roared. When are we going to have Aid on our channel?
Yeah, we definitely should.
Aid is a girl.
I don't know, Aid. Email us if you're a woman. We'll find out. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone, please go support Julie. She is a lovely person to be around. I definitely want to have you back again if you're willing to. I feel like there's so much more that we can talk about this. It's just absolutely crazy.
I'm sure Cristie would have loved to be here. She's just traveling right now, and she has a son that she's dealing with.
I know. I totally stalked all you guys before I came on. I saw her video with Zach.
Awesome. Yeah, so she would have loved to be here. So that'd be great. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you hang on after we close the show.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you next Tuesday with another meat-based lady. See ya.